Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Tutorials. In this part 2 of the tutorial for the Easter basket, we're actually going to be making the basket itself. And as you can see, it holds all the eggs and the chicken and the bunny, depending of course on how many eggs you make. And it is a really robust little basket. I've used pipe cleaners to stiffen the handle, and I'll show you how to do that. But the basket itself is worked in rounds. So let's have a look at what we'll need to make it. Okay, so I did mention that the basket handle has pipe cleaners in it, stiffening it. So you will need 2 pipe cleaners. These are the 30cm ones. You can use whatever colour you like. I actually used black in this handle and you can't see it. They've got white here. You can use whatever colour you like. And of course, your hook. I'm using a 6mm hook because I'm going to be using this 12 ply yarn. As you can see, it's not a particularly chunky 12 ply. It's actually really quite thin when compared to other 12 plies. This marvel isn't really very thick at all. So I'm using 2 strands of that held together, which is really easy, and I'll show you how to do that, and the 6mm hook. A pair of scissors, of course, a yarn needle for putting your edges away nice and neatly, and also sewing that handle onto the basket. A stitch marker, absolutely essential in amigurumi. And that really is it. Let's get started. If you've never made any or crocheted with 2 strands held together, it can be a little bit intimidating, but it needn't be. It is really just the same as using a thicker yarn. Essentially though, you need to marry your hook to that thickness of the 2 strands held together, and that's all. So for this particular project, we need to make a magic ring. If you can't make a magic ring, or you don't like to use magic rings, then simply chain 3 and crochet into the first chain. But for this, we're going to make a magic ring, so just lay the tail across your hand like that, wrap it around the front of your fingers and come up and cross it there. And then you're going to grab your hook, go in under that first one, grab the second, and then come back, grab that working yarn again and pull it through the loop on your hook. And then it will be a very stable ring and it won't actually give you any trouble. So for the first, to make the ring, obviously we're going to put 6 single crochets into that ring. So that's 1, 2, close the ring a bit, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we just need to pull that tail to close that ring up. From here, we're actually going to increase in rounds until we get to 54 stitches. So it'll take about 8 rounds from here. So in the first round, we are going to increase into every stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to increase into every stitch. That just means going in under those 2 loops of that first stitch, which can be a little bit tricky, but you'll get in there, and making 2 single crochets in that first stitch. That's 2. Pop in the stitch marker in our first stitch. And then making 2 single crochets into every stitch. So 1, oh, that went wrong. Sometimes you will only grab one strand of the yarn and it happens. 1 and 2, and then putting 2 single crochets into every stitch around. So we'll end up with 12 single crochets in our circle. I don't count necessarily, I trust the stitch marker, but if you like to count, then that's entirely up to you. Oh, hang on, I've only got one loop on that hook. And 2. So if we go back and count, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 stitches. In the next round, you're going to increase every second stitch. So what I mean by that is that we're going to put 1 single crochet in the first and then increase in the next. So by putting 2 single crochets into that stitch. Okay. And because we've just made 3 stitches, put that stitch marker 3 back to indicate our first, and then continue around the round doing that. So 1 in the first and 2 in the next. Then 1 and then 2. Now I've just told you that crocheting with 2 strands together is easy, but it just keeps making me a liar. It is easy. Sometimes you just grab one and continue around until you get back to this stitch prior to your stitch marker. 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and I'll meet you back. So after that round, you should have 18 stitches in your circle. In the next round, we're going to increase to 24 stitches. So we're going up 6 stitches every round. And that means that we'll need to increase in every 3rd stitch. So we simply single crochet into the first stitch, single crochet into the second, and then put 2 single crochets in the 3rd. I've just done 4, so I need to count back 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, to find my stitch marker placement and pop him in, and then just repeat. Single crochet in the first, single crochet in the second, and 2 in that 3rd. Again, single crochet in the first, single crochet in the second, and 2 in the 3rd. So continue around until you get to the stitch before your stitch marker, and I'll meet you when we get there. So for that round, you should have a total of 24 stitches in your round. In the next round, we're going to increase in every 4th stitch up till a total of 30 stitches. So again, it simply means we crochet in the first 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then increase in the 4th, putting 2 single crochets in that 4th stitch. Now I've just made 5 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is where I need to put my stitch marker, and continue around. Crochet into the first, into the second, into the third, and in the fourth we'll pop 2. So 1, 2, 3, and in the fourth we increase. So continue that way, putting a single crochet in 3 stitches and then increasing in your fourth with 2 single crochets until you get to prior to your stitch marker. I'm pretty sure you can see the pattern we're going by now. In the next round we're going to increase in the 5th stitch. So that is essentially single crocheting in 4 stitches and then increasing in every 5th. And this will give us a total of 36 stitches at the end of this round. So we single crochet in 4, and 4. I'm going to pop my stitch marker in there. And then increase in that 5th. So we'll put 2 single crochets in that 5th stitch, and then single crochet in 4, 2, 3, and 4, and then increase in the 5th. This is actually the way most amigurumi increases work. You work gradually increasing in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Just works that way, and it makes a nice flat circle. So you should have 36 stitches at the end of this round, increasing in every 5th stitch. So single crochet, single crochet, single crochet, single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then repeat until you get back to your stitch marker. I'll see you then. Okay, so we have 36 stitches around now. We're going to increase to 42, and that means, you guessed it, we're increasing in the 6th stitch. So that means we will single crochet 5, 1, 2, I'm going to put my stitch marker in now so I don't get lost, 3, 4, and 5, and in that 6th stitch it calls for an increase, so that's 2 single crochet in there. 1 and 2. So when you've completed this round, you will end up with 42 stitches in your round, and I'll see you when you get there. Okay, so you should have 42 stitches in your circle. Don't worry if the edges are curling up a little bit like that. It's not a problem. It will flatten out beautifully. In the next round, we're increasing in every, I know you know it, every 7th stitch. So essentially that will give us a total of 48 stitches at the end of this round. So it's exactly the same thing. We need to single crochet in the first 6 stitches now. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we're increasing in the 7th. That means we're putting 2 single crochets in that 7th stitch. I'll meet you back when you've completed this round. Okay, so after this round you have 48 stitches. You may notice your circle's looking a little bit hexagon-like. That is really common with the flat circle increase. You can stagger the way you do your increases and it does tend to look more circular, but it isn't going to be a problem for this basket. And for most projects, it's not a problem. It is still really circular, although it does look a little bit like a hexagon. So our last increase round is this round, yay, and that will take us to 54 stitches. So I'm sure you know what we're going to do. We're going to increase in the 8th stitch. So that is single crocheting in 7, 1, 2, pop in that stitch marker, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then putting 2 single crochets in the 8th. Now, if you're really good at maths, you can simply keep counting and just increase on every multiple of 8. But I tend to get a little bit confused when I do that, so all I do is count 1, 2, 3, an increase, or 1, 2, 3, 4, an increase. And in this case, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then increase. Okay, so we are increasing in the 8th stitch all the way around until the stitch marker. I'll meet you when you're done. Okay, that is our increases done. We have 54 stitches around, and we've finished our increase rounds. In the next round, round 9, we're going to half double crochet. If you're in the UK, you know that as the half treble, in the back loop only around for 54. Now this, of course, is the inside, so you might need to manipulate your little hexagon-y circle kind of thing to be up the right way. And then we're going to take our stitch marker out and just have a look at the stitch we're going into. So it's this one here, the next stitch, and this is the front loop, this is the front loop, and then the back loop is the one behind it. So we're going to half double crochet into the back loop only for this round, and that'll help the basket sit nice and flat on the bottom. You can see that that's got a really nice flat bottom for the basket to sit on. So we just need to yarn over and then go only into that back loop. So we're leaving the front loop. Okay, so we're going into the back loop only. We're ignoring the front loop and we're going only into the back loop of that stitch and doing a half double. And then again, only into the back loop of that stitch. And you'll see that it leaves the front loops sitting here. There's the front loops of those 2 stitches. So it won't be a problem. It just makes a nice little line actually around the bottom. You can see just there the little line around the bottom of the basket. We still need our stitch marker, even though you probably should be able to identify where this round starts because it's a change from single to half double, and of course the loop difference. But we're going to go all the way around in all 54 stitches with that half double crochet into the back loop only. Just into the back loop, just popping your hook in between the V's of the stitch. Okay, and I'll meet you when you've completed this round. Okay, so this is what it should look like after you've finished that round. You can see that you've got your leftover front loops just making a lovely little line around the base, and this will start to turn up into the side of the basket as soon as we begin these new rounds. For the next 7 rounds, rounds 10 to 16, so 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 7 rounds, we're simply going to half double crochet into every stitch around. So we've left the back loop only behind now, and we're crocheting into every stitch around. So under 2 loops and half double crochet. And we do that for 7 rounds. The way I find it easiest to remember which round I'm on is, rather than actually counting every stitch, I just trust my stitch marker. I just think to myself, this is round 1. And when I think about it again, I think this is round 1. And then in round 4, I think this is round 4. And so on until I've gotten to round 7. So this is a little way to crochet. I'm not going to make you watch me crochet. You'll crochet your 7 rounds of half double crochet to work the side of your basket, and I'll meet you back when you're done. So at the end of your 7 rounds, you'll have something that looks like this. And this is that was the end of the 16th round, all totaled. So now what we need to do is just finish the basket. So this is how high it will be, albeit with one little slip stitch row. So just take that stitch marker out for now. And what we're going to do is, for round 17, we're going to just single crochet into this next stitch. Of course that happens, there you go. Single crochet into that next stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch in the next stitch. So just slip stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch in every stitch around. So just make sure you put your marker back in the first stitch, and then just slip stitching around. And what that does is it makes this nice edge that's got the loops kind of facing down the side rather than sitting up the top the way they are here currently. So this is a really easy round of just slip stitches all the way until you get back to your stitch marker. And then once you've done this round, the base of this basket is finished. And so we can tie off once we've done these slip stitches, leave a little tail to weave in, and then get working on the handle. So slip stitch all the way around in every stitch, and I will meet you back when we're done. Once you get back to this stitch marker, just take it out, and we need to just slip stitch into that first stitch. And then we can tie off. That is the basket done. Now the handles are really easy. All we need to do is we're taking the same yarn and we're doing doubled over yarn again if that's what you're doing, otherwise you're just using your chunky yarn, and the same hook, and we're going to just chain 35. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, nope, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't think I was even in the camera then. We're going to chain 35. So once you've chained 35, I'll meet you back. Okay, so the chain, we have our chain of 35. Then all we need to do is single crochet into the second chain from the hook, and every chain all the way down. So just a single crochet into each chain until we get to the end. All the way down the chain, and I'll meet you when you've done that. Okay, so we've got all those single crochets done in every chain. We're just going to fasten off on this one, leave a reasonable tail. And then we need to put a slip stitch on your hook. And come back to your chain here, or your row of single crochet, and join into the top of that first stitch you made. So just put your working yarn on the back and put the hook through that first stitch there, and just bring it through and slip stitch to join. And then we're going to bring in our pipe cleaners, one of our pipe cleaners. You just need to hold that there while you single crochet over it. So we're going to go back. Where are we? Sorry. You hold it at the top, and it might be a little bit tricky to begin with. Just hold it at the top and single crochet over that pipe cleaner. Pop it back in if it tries to escape like it's doing right now. And then going to the next stitch and single crochet over it. And in the next stitch and single crochet over it. And you'll see that once you get that first couple of stitches in, it does hold itself there. And we're just single crocheting directly over the top of that pipe cleaner. Okay, so just like that, single crocheting over the top of the pipe cleaner, and I will meet you back when we're done. Okay, so we've finished putting that pipe cleaner in, and we just need to fasten off again. And then we need to join again on the other side of the chain. So just slip stitch and pop it on your hook, and again join just on the other side of the chain that we originally made. So just slip stitch to join that, and then bring the other pipe cleaner in, and similarly we're going to crochet, single crochet over this pipe cleaner again. So just go straight into that stitch, that first stitch where you joined, and we're going to go into every stitch from there. With single crochet, Kim, not half double crochets. And as I said, I'm sure you found it a little bit tricky to begin with, but once you got going down the pipe cleaner, it kind of sits in place better and it behaves itself. So once again, I'll join you when you've single crocheted down the whole length of the pipe cleaner. Okay, so once we've finished that, this probably is looking a little bit curly, so it will flatten out, don't worry about it. And again, we just need to fasten off at that end. Now you will probably have some little pipe cleaner ends hanging out, and what you can do is fold them over. If you have some snips and you want to snip them off, then absolutely feel free to do that. But in just a moment, we're going to sort this out so those ends won't be visible anyway. So if you fold your handle in half the way I have just done, then what we'll do is just grab a one piece. You don't need both strands anymore of the yarn you've been working with. Just grab one and grab a reasonable length. I've just grabbed, maybe about 1 metre, and that will be plenty. Then we're just going to thread the yarn needle, and what I like to do is to get this nice sort of rounded handle finish is just to come into these stitches and sew them together. So go into your first stitch and sew that to the opposite side. Just leave a bit of a tail there and sew that to the opposite side. And just go down and do a whip stitch every stitch or so. You can skip a stitch here and there until you get those pieces sewn, or those sides sewn together. And it gives it a much nicer look. Of course, you can have your handle flat if you like, but it's got these holes in it and I don't like that, so I make sure that mine is sewn together and it gives that lovely rounded look. As you can see, I'm not going into every stitch here. I'm going into probably every second stitch, and it won't matter if you skip a stitch here and there. Just whip stitching along that entire length. And I'll meet you back when we're done. Okay, so once we've stitched that all closed, you should have a lovely U-shaped handle, and that is what we're going to need to attach to our basket here. And I've left my sewing tail on just so I can, essentially you just need to work out the best position of the basket for you. I come down a little bit with the handles so that I can make them have a fairly firm hold on the basket. So I might as well use this tail that I've got already attached from sewing that handle together. And essentially I'm just going to go into the back loops of those HDC stitches and then across into the handle, and then again into that loop of the HDCs and across into the handle. I'm going to try and come back to the other side of the handle now to secure it on the other side. Now you can use these tails from actually constructing the handle to sew them in, but I find that just using this one piece that we've just sewed the handle together with is generally enough. You want to make it look fairly neat because of course you're going to be able to see it. So wherever you can find a place to sew it, then do. It looks a bit like Cthulhu in there at the moment, but some sort of crazy octopus, but like I said, as you can use these to actually sew it on there, or you can just use this. Okay. So you don't need to, go completely crazy with attaching it. It's fairly attached. Let's get a couple more stitches. And make a knot with this one. I'm just going to snip that one off. And then you need to be able to position this one so it's directly opposite. So what I tend to do is just pull that basket so I know that I've got the exact opposite spot, and do the same thing. Go in, grab a couple of back loops of the HDCs and attach it to that actual handle. Of course, that just happened. Don't do that. Just went around my handle with the yarn instead of on the inside. But, obviously you'll attach this in whatever method you normally use, and weave in those ends from your handle, or perhaps you're attaching with them, which is perfectly fine as well. Just need one more stitch really into the basket and into the handle. Another knot and tie it off. Now we still have this end to work in from the actual making of the basket, and all of these crazy ends which are just fairly easy to tie away just into the body of the handle. But yes, once you have done that, then you have your basket, and you would bring in your eggs and your stuffing, and you would stuff that and then put the eggs in, and your little bunny and your chicken, and there you have your Easter basket. I hope that tutorial was beneficial for you. I do hope you make this. It's a gorgeous little basket, and of course it could be used for anything. You could make it from much thicker yarn, and then you'd have a basket that you could use to hold soaps in the bathroom or whatever. All right, thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already subscribed, please do, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.